Welcome to this explainer. Today we're taking a concept known as the tracer bullet. Now traditionally this is kind of a niche software development technique, but we're going to transform it into a universal decision-making framework. You know, experienced engineers, they don't just collect technical terms, right? They collect reusable ways of thinking. So by the end of this, you're going to have a really powerful new mental model to navigate uncertainty in, well, almost any area of your life. Let's get right into it.
Think about a scenario we can all relate to, like learning to cook. Imagine two people. The first person spends months painstakingly reading through, say, 100 different recipes. The second person, they just pick one simple meal, they cook it, they taste it, they figure out what went wrong, they adjust, and then they cook it again. 6 months down the line, who actually understands cooking better? It's definitely going to be that second person. And it's not because they memorized more theory, but because they learned through reality. And that's exactly how the tracer bullet works. It's all about learning from reality before you make those larger commitments.
When you look right underneath the surface, every tracer bullet essentially follows this minimalist 6-step pattern. First, you make an assumption. Then, step 2, instead of debating that assumption endlessly, you build the absolute smallest complete test. Step 3, reality responds. Step 4, you get your feedback. Step 5, you adjust based on what you just learned. And finally, step 6, only then do you actually expand and invest more time or money. Notice how reality, not someone's opinion, is what dictates the very next move. That is exactly why engineers rely so heavily on this pattern.
Section 1. Engineering Connections. Bridging the pattern. Let's calmly walk through how this core pattern forms the bedrock of several deeply established engineering principles.
First up, we have fast feedback loops. The tracer bullet is literally just a highly effective implementation of this idea. Think about it. When you're operating without feedback, you're essentially just guessing in the dark. But when you use a tracer bullet, you're dramatically shortening the distance between your action and your learning. And as any good engineer will tell you, shorter feedback loops consistently produce vastly superior decisions.
Next, let's connect this to systems thinking. This principle teaches us that a system isn't just a random pile of parts. It's all about the interaction between those parts. So instead of just asking, does every individual component work by itself? The tracer bullet asks, does the entire system work together? This highlights a really crucial point. Engineering failures usually happen in the spaces between the components, not inside them. That's why end-to-end testing is absolutely critical.
Of course, the tracer bullet is deeply tied to risk management. Pretty much every single project begins with uncertainty, right? And you can never fully eliminate it. The real question is, when should we pay to reduce that uncertainty? The answer is, before making a massive investment. It's kind of like your own personal savings. You wouldn't just dump all your money into some totally untested financial strategy, would you? No way. You reduce the uncertainty first, and then you scale second.
And that brings us directly to resource allocation. Look, we all have limited resources, whether that's time, money, attention, or just pure effort. This mindset intelligently allocates those scarce resources by prioritizing one thing above absolutely everything else: hard evidence. Instead of investing heavily in untested assumptions, you're actually investing in reality. And I promise you, that difference becomes exponentially more valuable as your projects get larger and more complex.
Our final engineering connection here is SOP, or Standard Operating Procedure thinking. See, a lot of people try to verify every single isolated step of a process perfectly before moving on. The tracer bullet does the exact opposite. It verifies the complete workflow. It basically asks, can this entire process actually reach the finish line? The workflow itself becomes the object being tested, which guarantees that you actually have a functional path forward.
Section 2. Navigating Uncertainty. 3 metaphors. Now let's explore 3 mental metaphors that really capture the philosophical essence of navigating through darkness and high uncertainty. Our first metaphor is archery. Now, a beginner might sit around forever trying to build the absolute perfect bow before ever taking a single shot. But an experienced archer knows the truth. The first arrow teaches, the second arrow improves, and the third arrow benefits from everything you learned before. Firing that first arrow is purely about revealing your direction. It is absolutely not about demonstrating perfection. Our second metaphor is GPS navigation. Imagine driving in a totally unfamiliar city without one. Pretty stressful, right? But remember, a GPS doesn't guarantee perfection. What it does guarantee is continuous correction. Your goal here isn't to draw a flawless initial route on a map,
Your goal is to continuously course correct based on the actual reality of the road. And our third metaphor is hiking up a dark mountain at night. A flashlight only reveals, a few meters ahead of you. It's never going to illuminate the entire mountain all at once. But here is the secret. You don't actually need perfect visibility of the whole mountain. You only need just enough evidence to safely take that very next step.
Section 3. Cross-domain transfer. Seeing the pattern everywhere. Let's step completely outside of the software engineering world for a minute and see how this exact same pattern seamlessly applies to pretty much every area of life and business.
This is where it all clicks together across different domains. Think about learning. Instead of reading 10 books on a topic, you learn one concept, you apply it, and you get feedback. In your career, instead of just hoarding endless certifications, you build one complete project and let reality show you where your skills might break down. In investing, you start small and only increase funding when the evidence actually improves. For a business, you prove one model works before going out and opening 10 stores. You're scaling confidence, not assumptions. Even in content creation, you publish one complete package, review those metrics, and then improve. The feedback loop is universally identical.
So the whole thing really comes down to this one crucial question. What is the smallest complete experiment I can run before making a much larger commitment? Whenever you face high uncertainty in your life, this question is honestly your ultimate decision-making tool.
Section 4. Knowledge compression. We are going to strip away all the context and all the examples until only the absolute, undeniable core truths remain. First, keep this single workflow in mind. We start with an idea. We push it through one complete workflow. It hits reality. We gather feedback, we adjust our direction, and finally, we expand. This entire journey can be visually summarized in just those few steps.
Next, here is your one minimalist formula. Direction is greater than speed. Moving quickly is entirely useless if you're running the wrong way. Speed literally only matters when you are already moving in the correct direction.
Then we have your one mental model. Fire one engineering arrow before building 1,000 arrows. You absolutely must test your trajectory in the real world before you mass produce an untested assumption.
Which brings us to our final, foundational engineering rule. If you take away just one sentence from this entire explainer, make it this: reduce uncertainty before increasing investment. Look, tools change, new technologies fade, but this engineering principle, it'll last a lifetime. It is a profoundly reusable way of thinking.
I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today. Take a look at your own life, your own work, your current projects. What is the smallest complete experiment that would give you real evidence today? Stop guessing, start testing, and let reality guide your next step. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.